Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to the Prevention Action Alliance Advocacy webinar. Happy New Year as well. My name is JP Dorval, and we have our Executive Director, Marcie Seidel, who will also be presenting today for this advocacy webinar. But the first two slides, I will be talking to you guys about the happenings, the recent happenings in the General Assembly. So it should be fun. So opening day session was Monday, and with opening day session, you have the elections for the House leadership and the Senate leadership. And something that we were really keeping an eye on was the Speaker of the House election. And to our surprise, Larry Householder was elected Speaker of the House. Now, this is extremely interesting because Larry Householder, for those of you who do not know, was the Speaker of the House back in 2001 and had to leave in 2004 because of some ethics issues. He was actually under investigation by the FBI, so he left for a bit and then came back. And Smith was the Speaker who replaced Rosenberger back in May, and he was the apparent favorite coming into this election. However, since the House Republicans were split, for the first time in a long time, the Democratic Party, the Dems in the House, who are the superminority, had a say in who was going to be Speaker for this General Assembly. So on both sides, you had a lot of negotiations happening, and apparently, to our surprise, Larry Householder was able to get the support of the majority of Democrats, actually, and that pushed him over the 50-vote limit for him to become a speaker. So the vote ended in a 52 to 45 vote split, and now Larry Householder will be the speaker for the 133rd General Assembly. Now, among the things he discussed with Democrats, he mentioned that, if elected speaker, he would definitely try to change the culture of the House. And me coming from the Senate, I do know that a few of the things that he mentioned that he would try to implement are things that have been issues that the minority party, the Democrats, have had to face for a while. So among those things, he mentioned broadcasting all committee hearings, for the committees that are held in hearing rooms with cameras, broadcasting those. He mentioned when it comes to subcommittees having co-chairs. Now, you have to understand that a subcommittee is not a standing committee. The standing committees will still have only one chair. However, subcommittees, which are created if there is some either legislative issue or ballot issue that needs to be looked at further, would have co-chairs. So that's another huge change. He also discussed bringing on HR persons into the State House, which is also a huge issue that both sides of the General Assembly have faced, both the House and the Senate, given the sexual misconduct allegations that took place last General Assembly. I do know that both sides have complained about not having proper HR individuals hired in the Senate. And among other things, the Democratic Party was still split despite this conversation, and we still have yet to see whether Larry Householder will uphold his side of the bargain, given that he beat Smith in an unlikely victory. We have to see whether he'll use this new power that he has regained to bring about the changes that he spoke to Democrats about. So we're just waiting to see. The Columbus Dispatch wrote a pretty scathing editorial about him, highlighting his past ethics issues and saying that really, in a time where both parties are divided, the House is definitely divided, Larry Householder might not be the best leader, but alas, we have him as Speaker of the House, and all we can hope is that our elected officials made the right decision. We have to have faith in them. We have to work with the House to acquire changes that can benefit all Ohioans. So we are looking forward to see what Larry Householder will do, but we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on the House. Next thing I would like to discuss is the new laws in 2019. So as many of you know, lame duck session comes with a lot of last-minute bill passing, and with bills that were passed within the last couple of months, they will be enacted or they will become effective in the first couple months of the new year. So the Ohio Constitution requires that 90 full days elapse before a law goes into effect in order to permit any possible referendum, petition, or petition to be circulated and filed by the electorate, which makes the effective date of laws usually the 91st day after its filing with the Secretary of State. So that being said, after a law is passed in the General Assembly and is signed by the governor, it has to be filed by the Secretary of State. And 90 days after that filing, that is when a bill becomes effective. So in order to see the chart for this, so you know which bills are going to be effective when, the Secretary of State has a great tool on their website to help you look that information up. So if you look up the Secretary of State's site via Google or whatever navigator you use, go to the Legislation and Ballot Issues tab at the top of the page. And then once you click that, you will see bill effective dates at the bottom. You click that, and then you will go to the 132nd General Assembly 2017 to 2018 session laws. And once you pull that up, you will see a nice little chart of the bills that were passed and when they are going to be effective and when they have gone effective. And it'll be separated from by House bill and Senate bill, and also resolutions as well. So that is just a great tool to figure out, when things are going to become effective, and when different aspects of a law are going to affect you or the work that you do. So that is all I have, and I will pass it along to Marcie.
Good morning and Happy New Year, everyone. It's good to be back and looking with fresh eyes at a new legislature and see what's going to happen. I read in the Canton Repository this morning that in an editorial that they kind of are anticipating that it'll be like a soap opera. So I hope that's not the case and that we will have a really strong and good legislative session going on that will be focused on what we feel is important. But first, I'd like to just touch upon the U.S. government shutdown. We know that the shutdown took place at the end of December, on December 22nd, actually, and it is a partial shutdown. So 9 out of the 15 federal departments and many agencies are closed. And as you can see on the slide, who all they involve. Certainly we hear things about the National Park Service and transportation, urban housing, and certainly the IRS. And everyone, personally, we all can be a little bit concerned about the IRS if we're expecting a tax return. But I just heard on a radio on the way to work today that they are in fact bringing back individuals into the IRS, even though they're not being paid, to be able to process those tax returns checks. So there is some promise there for that. So we'll see how this entire shutdown plays out. The question has been, and does it affect us in the world that in which we work? And we're hoping that it will do little to affect us. But the one thing that we will want to take a look at are for those that are DFCs. And can we have the next slide, please, JP? The DFCs, the support system for the DFCs from the Office of National Drug Control Policy, but they have been furloughed and so they will not be available. However, we are understanding that the payment management system is still operational. So for those of you who are a grantee of that system, hopefully your funds will still be coming in. And while you will not be able to get support from the DFCs at ONDCP, we understand that HHS and SAMHSA support teams are still available for you, which brings many of us to know that a lot of our funding does come from SAMHSA. It comes and flows in through the state, and the state then out to all of us. And that doesn't look like that's going to be interrupted during this partial shutdown. At this point, that's what we understand, and hopefully we won't see that, and hopefully the federal government will reopen very soon, and these problems won't be concerns to any of us. Okay, as I said, this is a brand new year, and we are looking forward to it. I believe, my personal opinion is that we are in a situation right now where most people, and certainly in the legislature and in leadership positions now in the state of Ohio, understands the problem of opiates and how it's affected our communities and our families. And I think we're starting to make that transition from them being very focused on opiates to understanding that it's an addiction process. So as we move into this new year, I think there are 16 new Democrats in the House and 16 new Republicans in the House. And so it'll be an opportunity for us to reach out to all of them. If there's a new one in your district, I encourage you to do that. And certainly to reinforce with those who are returning to the legislature the problem. And the problem, while it is very much in our face, opiates, the problem is addiction. And we need to start changing that language up for all of our leaders at the State House to understand what that means and what we need to do about it. We're very focused on doing things that will prevent deaths. And while that certainly is important, what we need to do is to provide prevention that gets us to the point where we don't have to worry about preventing deaths. We don't ever get that far into a problem of this magnitude. So we have pulled together an approach. The first thing that we want to do is to provide a great deal of education to all of our legislators to understand the importance of universal primary prevention, and then also the secondary piece of prevention, all prevention, but certainly primary prevention. That doesn't seem to be a focus that anyone really truly can grasp, and it's incumbent upon us as prevention specialists to be able to do that. We want them to understand that any dollars put toward it is an investment in the future. And while the investment takes maybe a little bit longer to play out than their 4, 4, or 8-year terms, it is something that needs to happen for the good of our society and for our communities. We have to impress upon them that it needs to be ongoing. It can't be a quick hit with a big bunch of dollars and then the dollars go away. It has to be sustainable and continue to go. That's another piece that we have to take. And we know that the majority of all the funding that comes in for primary prevention flows through block grants or grants from the federal government. The state, the last I heard, has nothing, little to nothing in a line item that promotes prevention or supports prevention in the state of Ohio. So we have to do our best to enlighten them about the importance of that and the investment upon our future. The first part of our three-prong approach, outside of framing the issue, is that we want to make sure that schools and have education-based prevention services. And we want to make sure that there are evidence-based prevention services starting in preschool going all the way through high school. We want to make sure that it's a sustained message, that it comes from every factor of the community. We want to make sure that there's research-based educational materials available. So in our white paper that we are putting together, and we will be sharing that with you in the near future, we want to make sure that the education piece of this is focused. Our understanding is that Governor-elect Taft, sorry, I'm going back to my old days, Governor-elect DeWine is very focused on schools. We understand that's one of his primary things. He even has an individual designated to head that up in his cabinet. So that's a good start for us, and we will do all we can to support her in that endeavor. Our second approach is a community-based, and certainly that we know is a very strong evidence-based, good strategy that works throughout our state and throughout the nation. Our strategic prevention framework needs to be highlighted and supported and lifted up. We need to have prevention regarded as a health service, and we need to require that we have trained and certified professionals who are in doing the job. We want to make sure that research-based programs, strategies, and frameworks will go into place and be sustained. We need and want to see collaboration at all levels, from the state departments into communities, into the schools, that everybody's collaborating together on that, and that we have a regional network of prevention consultants who are there and ready to help those in their communities achieve the best results that they can. Our third approach that we're hoping for is looking at promoting and lifting up the youth-led prevention in all parts of the state of Ohio, and certainly in efforts to support through the legislature by giving funding for the youth-led prevention programs. As we know that many schools, it goes through many schools and they don't have the time or the capacity or the resources to lift that up. We're looking to the legislature to help us figure out how we can make that a priority, knowing how important youth-led prevention is. We want young people and the prevention programs to promote healthy choices, so young people really know how to make good choices in their life, increase their knowledge and skills for community change, because we know how a community embraces their youth, and the environment that's wrapped around them is as important as anything, and young people have a powerful voice there. And we want to create networks that can provide delivery systems of prevention services to the youth in the state of Ohio. So that's our three-prong approach. We are going to be putting some more specifics to that, some dollars to that, and we are going to approach the governor and the legislature on these proposals and really promote, in a time that I think that we have the best voice that we've had in my years in prevention to talk about this. This is our year to do it. So I encourage you all to join in with us as we start that and help us with the approach to get to good prevention in the state of Ohio. The other thing, and the final thing that we have, it's been kind of quiet since there are no real bills to talk about, but medical marijuana control program is still moving forward. And the last I have anticipated that January 15th, there will be the first sale of marijuana product in the state of Ohio, and we'll see if that prediction comes true, but I know that they're very close, and that's only next week, so I imagine that it will be. The second thing is the Medical Marijuana Advisory Committee canceled their January meeting, and they will be meeting in February, on February 7th in the Rife Center. So please, if you are at all interested in coming down and observing that meeting, that will take place at 10 o'clock in the Rife Center. And then there's been a situation where, as we put together the cultivators in the state of Ohio for this new program, that there's been, as you know, lots of lawsuits and a lot of appeals about people that didn't get a license or a provisional license, and challenges along certainly the economically disadvantaged group language. And it was proven to be unconstitutional, and because of that, they went back, and 2 additional cultivators now have provisional license. So in the very beginning, it was only, I believe it was 24 provisional licenses. It's up to 26 or more now because of these appeals and because of these lawsuits. So there will be a lot in the future. There'll be a lot of marijuana produced in the state of Ohio. Then finally, the system, of course, is up and running, and the registry, patient registry, is open. We talked about that. It's been open now for 4 weeks. At this point, we have nearly 5,000 recommendations for patients and caregivers in the Registry of Ohio. Of those recommendations, a little over 3,500 of them have activated their registry card. So everything is in place for the moment that the dispensaries open for those individuals to be able to go in and purchase the product they need for their therapeutic use of marijuana. That's pretty much all that we have at this point, and we're interested in what your thoughts are, and we're interested in your questions. So JP, do we have any at this point?
Yes, Marcie, we actually do. One of our viewers would like to know if there is a dollar amount that we can use to emphasize the impact of prevention. Apparently, we used to say every $1 spent is returned is a $10 return in savings. So she wants to know whether there is a dollar amount that we can use when talking to legislators and anyone else interested.
Yeah, there is, and there are several studies out there that do it. The one that we have talked about for many years came out of the University of Indiana, I believe it is. I'll have to go back and double check that for sure. But their study that they did, a comprehensive study, and showed that for every dollar spent on prevention, main prevention, $10 were saved in the budget. So that was that is in line with most everything that we have heard in other places too, but we'll be putting together some of that statistics. But that's one that you can say right there that the research has shown $1 saves $10, and we know that to be very true. And we'll get that all put together with you, but that's one that you can start with.
So it looks like we have another question. Another viewer would like to know when will the RFP for the DFC go out for the next round? They said that last year it was the 12th, and she's wondering whether it will be delayed because of the shutdown.
My guess is that it will be delayed. If it sounds like all of the ONDC people have been furloughed, so until they are assigned back to their workstations, I'm guessing that it will be delayed. But I have no specific information on that. I have not heard, but we're keeping our eyes open to see how it continues to play out.
Okay, we will wait for a minute or two to see if any other questions come in. So we have another question asking whether local health food stores are going to be allowed to sell CBD.
Well, that has been the most complex and confusing thing that we have seen in the longest time. But the farm bill that was just passed by the U.S. government, I think, allows CBD oil to be used, and it's along with hemp, because it needs to be hemp oil, not cannabis oil. But if it's hemp oil, it is now legal and will be able to be allowed to be grown in the states, or at least by the federal standards. Each state will be able to make their own decision. But technically, I think they probably can sell it now. And even if they can't, we also know this, that no one is monitoring it or controlling it or policing it or preventing it. So that's kind of where we are.
So Marcie, continuing off of that note, does that mean that the CBD oils, as of right now, are only to be sold from dispensaries? Like, how does that work?
And that's where it gets really confusing when I say that no one is really sure and monitoring it. The state departments, the Ohio Department of Ohio Board of Pharmacies, thank you. The Board of Pharmacies, who oversees and controls the dispensaries, basically have said that it has to come from, because of Ohio's law, and that's when I said it's legal in the states, but Ohio, or each state, has their own way of doing things. In Ohio, it has to really come from the dispensary and the Ohio Medical Marijuana Control Program. So that means it has to be sold in dispensaries. So technically, in Ohio, it cannot be sold at any other store but a dispensary. But it just seems like a lot of that's happening, and happening online as well. It's rather disturbing, and it's just kind of disturbing. I'll leave it at that.
All right, I will wait a bit for any more questions. All right, it looks like we have no other questions. So thank you for tuning in to today's advocacy webinar. Hope you guys learned a lot, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.